Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series, and I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer to the end of the NXT reviews, which is actually pretty good. You know, I'm really happy that I'm getting towards the end. As much as I love NXT, but no matter with what it is, when you watch something, you are happy when the series becomes over, and I think that's what's starting to happen. I have a few more NXT episodes to watch. I got a couple more of these videos I got to do, and then I'll be all caught up with NXT, and I will do a predictions video for the NXT show coming up. So, you know, if you guys want to know the backstory, I'll just kind of give it to you. NXT TakeOver Brooklyn just ended, and we're now at the point where we'll get into the where Shinsuke Nakamura is now the NXT champion. So we're going to wonder what's going to happen. Obviously, we know there's going to be a rematch. There was going to be a rematch coming with Samoa Joe and Nakamura, so we're going to wonder what's going to happen with that. The NXT Tag Team titles, are going to wonder what's going to happen with that, with the Revival beating Gargano and Ciampa. The NXT Women's title match, what's next for that? What's next for the women in general? Because now you don't have Bayley, you don't have Carmella, you don't have Alexa Bliss, and you don't have any of the women really anymore. It's just all kind of, you know, kind of the NXT Women's roster doesn't have a lot of women. You have this. Now you got Bobby Roode in NXT, and he's already off to a great start. You got Austin Aries, who's really good things. You got Hideo Itami back. So what's going to happen with NXT? Well, you guys already know, but I'm still going to say it as if it hasn't happened. Let's find out. Okay, so I know it's Sunday, and I still haven't finished the NXT review series. I truly apologize for that. It's just the fact that I just haven't had a chance to do it. I've had family here and all that, so I'm going to try to finish it. I don't know how far I'll get, but I'm going to try. So yeah, let's just continue with it. So we had NXT from August 24th, 2016. We had the same people on commentary. Now I'm just going to kind of not only go through this fast, but I'm just going to kind of go through this all at once. This was the show right after NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, which was a great show. I never really said which one I liked better. I think I liked the first one better. I thought the second one was great, but the first one I thought had a little bit better code, and I thought it had a little bit better storylines going into it. So I liked the first one better, but the second one was definitely great. It's just maybe a little bit underneath. But anyhow, we had interview segments that they always do. Bobby Roode talking about how, why is everyone so surprised that I won my match? I'm glorious. Kind of doing his whole gimmick. Austin Aries getting interviewed, and he's just pissed because he really didn't get to go out with a win, and everyone's trying to make an impact off his name. Baron Corbin, he didn't even give him his moment to really have his debut. He got laid out, but what happened? I beat him. And then he talks about how he was trying to be sincere after his loss over Nakamura, but then Owe Jose comes in, but I beat him, so the same thing's just going to happen to Hideo Itami. Bayley gets interviewed and talk about how she's disappointed that she lost the NXT Women's title match. And then Ember Moon comes up, and they have a face-off and says maybe we can go at it at some point, which obviously isn't the case because she had made her debut on Raw the next night, so it's not going to happen. They had another Sanity video. The Revival got interviewed, pretty much say how they're the greatest tag team of all time. So that's all the interview segments. They even showed them, like, the matches and all that. So then we have the actual matches themselves that I thought were pretty good matches. We had Ty Dillinger versus Wesley Blake. I thought this was a really solid match. I thought they both showed a good moveset. And I believe Wesley Blake hit a sick backbreaker while a backstabber while Ty Dillinger was trapped in the ropes. But Ty Dillinger eventually wins with a tiebreaker, which is a Death Valley driver into a knee to the head. So he wins with the tiebreaker. And then we had TM61 versus the Authors of Pain with Paul Ellering ringside. And this was a really good main event tag team match. The Authors of Pain try to attack him immediately, but TM61 fights him off. And we find out that their names, let me just make sure I look these up so I don't forget. Just give me a minute. But yeah, so, and TM61 dives on one of them. Oh, just give me a minute though. It's not giving me what I want. I forget the name. It will probably say. Let me just do this. Okay, so we found out that the name are Cam and Razo. So there we go. And you know, they pretty much dominate TM61, but TM61 makes a small little comeback, but eventually the Authors of Pain win with the clothesline into the Russian leg sweep. I thought it was a really good match though. And yeah, that was this week's episode of it. That was the NXT episode from August 24th. I thought it was a really good episode. I liked the match with Ty Dillinger and Wesley Blake, and I liked the tag team main event, so I thought it was overall really good. Okay, so now we have NXT from August 31st, 2016. We had the same people on commentary. And first it shows Samoa Joe in the trainer's room. And we find out that he pretty much is out of action because the Kim Sasha that he took from Nakamura at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2 injured his jaw, but he has a lot of injuries, so right now he can't do anything physical at the moment. So obviously, you know, this is kind of a way to push back the feud until they have a rematch, and I thought that was good. So then we had the first match on the show. It was Ty Dillinger versus Buddy Murphy. A good match. They had, you know, obviously the Murphy and Blake are continuing this thing where they're trying to one-up each other to see who the better partner is, so I kind of like that. It just, I kind of don't like what they're doing because sometimes the other team, sometimes the owner team. But Ty Dillinger ended up winning with the tiebreaker. And then Tommaso Ciampa gets interviewed, and we find out that he suffered a knee injury from his match at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2 and his match in the Cruiserweight Classics tournament. So Tommaso Ciampa talks about how it's just there to give an update for Johnny Gargano. I think I said Tommaso Ciampa by accident, but it was Johnny Gargano. And Ciampa talks about how Gargano has a lot of hope, but when the time is right, he will be back. And then the Revival come up and say, a lot of hope, huh? And obviously they were going to jump him, so Tommaso Ciampa tries to fight him off, and Dawson tackles him into the door. So and obviously they were filming this, I guess, just outside the arena. Well, not the arena, but like, you know, where the ring is and all that. And the Revival beat the crap out of him on the announcer's table, and they really just beat the crap out of Tommaso Ciampa. They hit a wicked knee right to the gut and just toss him outside the ring. And then Dawson gets on the mic, and the Revival talk about how you think that you're great until you meet reality, and that's what Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano thought they were. But that was until their reality was the Revival. And they talk about how the Revival are the greatest tag team in the world. And then Tommaso Ciampa gets back in the ring, and he's just laughing. I thought this made him look really strong because it showed that he wasn't really to go down without, you know, it showed him resiliency. But then Dash gets on the mic and says, "Time to go." And Dawson says, "Time to meet reality." And the Revival hit the Shatter Machine on Tommaso Ciampa. So I think obviously they'll build into another NXT tag title match between Gargano and Ciampa versus the Revival, since they did this attack here. Then the next match, it was Steve Cutler versus Kenneth Crawford. This was an okay match. Obviously, what I liked about this is it showed two new stars of NXT. Steve Cutler was someone we had seen before, but he never really got like his big break. And he cut a promo talking about how he's ready to make an impact, and he doesn't care if you like him, he doesn't care if you love him, and he especially doesn't care if you hate him. But he said that at the end of the day, you will respect Steve Cutler. And this was overall a solid match. It wasn't great, but it was good. Kenneth Crawford hit like a wicked right hand, like where he spun around and then hit the right hand, which was nice. He even hit a sick run and shoot and stop press, which was while he was on the floor. And then eventually Steve Cutler won with the what's it called? Hold on, let me think. I'm going to look stupid. I think Steve Cutler won with the like a Michinoku driver, but into like a fish. Oh, it was a Fisherman's Michinoku driver, and he won, which made sense because it seems like we've seen him more, and it seems like they want to do something with him, so that's good. And I like his attitude. I think he's actually a solid talent. I don't think he's great, but I think he's solid. And then Hideo Itami gets interviewed, and he talks about how Austin Aries talks about how he's a man, but he really is a little baby, because he said that it felt great hitting the GTS on Austin Aries, and he talks about how he was crying about it, and he says that if he's going to act like a baby, then he doesn't belong in his ring. So I thought that was a good promo by Hideo Itami. And then Sanity cuts it shows another Sanity video package, the same one. Then it shows a TM61 video package because they're hyping up the match, because they're going to have a match at the next episode of NXT. And then the next match is No Way Jose versus Angelo Dawkins. This was the first time we had seen No Way Jose since he had lost to Austin Aries at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2. And he ended up beating Angelo Dawkins with the knuckleball into the reverse inverted full Nelson slam on Angelo Dawkins. So that was fine. And then we had Adriana Cien Alma's interview. And before he can really say anything, Austin Aries comes up and says that, you know, that he's upset that pretty much people he keeps trying to make a name for himself, but people keep interrupting it. And he said that Hideo Itami kind of broke his eardrum, so he can't hear out of his left ear. So he said that he's coming up to address Adriana Cien Alma's interview since he lost in NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2. And then he says something in Spanish, but Aries says, "Look, I speak English here." Well, something that I don't speak Spanish. So then Adriana Cien Alma says that he wants him in a match next week, and Aries then says, "I can't hear out of my left ear," so I still didn't catch that. I thought Austin Aries was great here, and this was obviously a great way to set up for a match between them, two of them, on the next episode of NXT. The next match was Liv Morgan versus Aaliyah. Well, like I said, I like this in a sense because it's obviously the NXT Women's Division's kind of dead now. You don't have Bayley, you don't have Carmella, you don't have, like I talked about earlier in the video, you don't have all these superstars now. So now you kind of have to try to make some new stars. Obviously now they got Billie Kay that they can do that with, Ember Moon, and you know, Liv Morgan and Aaliyah are two new women that they can utilize. And overall, it was an okay match. Wasn't great. Aaliyah hit the 6 submission move where she got Morgan into the Kimura lock into a head scissors. I thought that looked really cool. But overall, Liv Morgan wins with a botch kick to the head, so I didn't really care for the finish. But overall, I mean, it was just kind of like it just kind of ended randomly, so I really didn't care for the finish. And then the main event, well, then No Way Jose gets interviewed, and he talks about how he had that little hiccup at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, but he's saying no way, Jose. He's still going to make his time at the top. And then Bobby Roode comes up and looks at him and says, nice head. So obviously I thought Bobby Roode's comment was great, and obviously this is to set up another match between them, And then the ending is Shinsuke Nakamura returns. This was the first time we had seen Nakamura since he had won the NXT Championship, and he pretty much talks about how he wanted to fight the best, you know, and he did his thing in Japan. He came to NXT to fight the best, and throughout the night it showed like the video package of what he's done in NXT. He's beaten Sami Zayn. He's beaten you know, the best in Sami Zayn, the icon Finn Balor, and he said it all led him to become the NXT champion. And pretty much he fought through those injuries that he was having in the match and won the NXT title. And he said that he respects Samoa Joe. I like the way he calls him Samoa Joe because he can't really say Samoa Joe because of his accent. But he says that the Joe era is over, and he said that it's the era of strong style. And then he chants something in Japan, and that was it. I thought this was a really good ending promo segment because it's to show what's to come for NXT in the future with Nakamura now as champion. I think we can get a lot of good stuff with Nakamura as champion. And like I said, it's really weird. We got two international stars holding the top belt and the top women's belt. Nakamura with the NXT title, and Asuka in the NXT women's title. So I think that's really cool. So Yeah, overall, I thought NXT was just a solid episode. I would give it maybe like a 6 out of 10. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great, but I like what they did. I liked the attack that the Revival did on Tommaso Ciampa. I liked the Ty Dillinger Buddy Murphy match. That was okay. No Way Jose stuff was good, and the Bobby Roode segment. The setup with Cien Almas versus Austin Aries was good. And I like that, even though the Steve Cutler Kenneth Crawford, that was a solid match. And I liked how the showcase and new talent on NXT. Same thing with the women's match on this show, and the setup with Hideo Itami, Austin Aries. Overall, I thought it was a solid episode of NXT. Okay, so now on to NXT for September 7th, 2016. And we had the same people on commentary as we always do. And the first match on the show was TM61 versus Tony Nese and Ilya Daivari. They were also obviously Cruiserweight Classic competitors. And I thought this was a really good tag team match. I thought Tony Nese and Ilya Daivari looked really strong as a team. And they really looked good. And Tony Nese hit a sick super kick to the gut. And what's his name? Shane Thorne hit a sick dive onto both guys, and Nick Miller hit a suicide dive onto both guys as well. And they got the heat on one of them for a while. I kind of don't really remember, if I'm not going to lie. And eventually they went with the TM61 with him in the Thunder Valley. But overall, it was a really good opening match. And then Tom Phillips interviews Asuka, and she talks about how she's pretty much swiped the whole NXT Women's Division out of NXT. And she said that she's ready to put on all challenges. She says it doesn't matter. But she respects, and she even talks about a match with Bayley from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, so I thought that was good. And then we had another Steven Cutler interview, and he talks about, pretty much says the same thing, that he doesn't care, and he said that he's going to take out Shinsuke Nakamura tonight and put himself in line for an NXT title match. Then we had Lee Vaughn, I think that's how you say that, versus Ember Moon. Overall, a solid women's match. It was really an enhancement match, and Ember Moon wins with the stunner off the top rope. But I thought it was overall a good match, and it was a good way to showcase Ember Moon. Then No Way Jose gets interviewed, and he talks about how Bobby Roode comes in here and wears a suit and tells me to change, and he said that he isn't going to change for anybody. He's going to stay the same guy, and he's going to prove that, because this was to build up an episode for a match for the next episode of NXT. And then it shows Tommaso Ciampa in the trainer's room, and he's being checked on, and Johnny Gargano comes up and says that William Regal has given him a chance to prove themselves on the final episode of the Cruiserweight Classics, which is in the next episode. And then Tommaso Ciampa is more focused on getting their hands on the Revival, and they say they want to get the Revival where it hurts, and that's to take the NXT Tag Team Championships from them. And overall, it was good. And then we had the match of the night, in my opinion, Adriana Cien Almas versus Austin Aries. I thought this was a really good match, and I love the move where Almas hits the dropkick when the guy goes to hit lay down when they're doing the whole leaps. I thought that was good. I think that's good. And Almas hits a dive on the floor, and he goes to hit a moonsault on Aries, but Aries pushes him off the ropes, and then Aries dominates him for a little while. And then Almas makes a comeback. He goes for the double knees in the corner, but Aries counters into a drop kick in the corner, which I thought was a nice spot. And then eventually Aries catches him into a powerbomb and then puts him in the last chancery, which I thought looked sick. And Almas taps out, so Aries goes over. And then it shows another Sanity video package. And then we had the main event, Steve Cutler versus Shinsuke Nakamura, with Samoa Joe doing guest commentary. Samoa Joe was acting kind of different in this match. He wasn't like pissed that he lost the NXT title. He just kind of was acting like a babyface face type, where he's saying that I just realized I need to relook my strategy and stuff like that. So I thought that was good. And eventually Nakamura beats him with the Kinshasa. He pretty much squashed him, but Cutler got some offense in. So I kind of really didn't understand why Cutler kind of got squashed, because you had literally just debuted him on the episode before. And, yeah, he just kind of got destroyed out here. You know, didn't really think that made a whole lot of sense. Overall, I thought this was an okay episode of NXT. I would give it maybe like a 6 out of 10. I thought it was good. I thought there was stuff I liked on it. I liked the opening tag match. I liked Almas versus Aries. I liked the women's match. I thought that was okay. I just really wasn't a huge fan of the whole way they kind of treated Steve Cutler. And it just wasn't... It was a good episode, but it's not like NXT quality good. Like, it wasn't like what you would get from normally from an NXT, so that's kind of what I thought about it. And I want to mention this now before I forget. They have a new Titantron now, and they have a new they're back in the Full Sail University, so I want to mention that, which I like the new Titantron. It's really good, so that's good. Alright, so now we have NXT from September 14th, 2016. And we had the same people on commentary. And the first match, not really a match, but the first promo segment that happened was Samoa Joe came out. And like I had mentioned earlier in the video, Samoa Joe had seemed different in the last video. He seemed like you would think he would have been pissed off that he had lost the NXT title, but it didn't seem that way in this on the last episode. Same thing here. And he comes out and he talked about how you would think he would be, how everyone thought he was going to be pissed off that he lost the NXT title, but he said that when somebody goes into a match, and sometimes when they lose, it allowed people to go into the mirror and realize that they've changed, and that's what's happened to him. He talks about how before when he was chasing for the NXT title and when he was the champion, he took out his friends and he took out everybody and just dominated the NXT landscape, and he realized that that was wrong. And he says that he is a man and he says things to people's faces, so he calls out Shinsuke Nakamura. So then Shinsuke Nakamura comes out and Samoa Joe says that what else does he say? Says that he's a guy, like he said, he's a guy that tells people to his face. He doesn't go on Twitter or any other type of social media and start feuds. He tells them to their face. And he said that everything that they were saying to their build-up, they didn't need it. Their match had already had enough hype because we went out and we tore down the house. And he says that he had said that Nakamura was an unworthy #1 contender before, but now he believes that he is. And he said that he's a worthy champion. And he says that when he's cleared to compete, he does get a rematch clause, and he's not going to be like Finn Balor, where he doesn't tell him when he's getting a match. He's not going to have William Regal tell him what his rematch is. He's going to tell him when he's better. So then Nakamura then says, rematch, you got it. So then afterwards, you think the segment's going to be done. Him and Samoa Joe shake hands. And I was thinking as I was watching this, I feel like Samoa Joe is just playing mind games with Shinsuke Nakamura, making him think that he's changed his ways. And then he's just going to explode and just beat the crap out of him one week. Well, Nakamura was celebrated, he went to leave, and then Joe just jumps Shinsuke Nakamura from behind. So it happened a lot sooner than I thought it was going to. And he just beats the crap out of him. And he throws him into the steel steps. And he really lays into him with right hands to the ribs, knees to the ribs. And then he hits the Uranagi right onto the steel steps. Samoa Joe just completely wipes out Nakamura. And he just went full intense here. And afterwards, the EMTs have to come in and stretch him out. William Regal comes out to check on his well-being. And even Corey Graves got off commentary to check on his well-being. And you kind of know that this was a huge heel moment, because Corey Graves normally supports the heels all the time. But here, he really, kind of acted, was concerned for Shinsuke Nakamura, who's like the biggest babyface in NXT right now. So then William Regal goes backstage and he's trying to find Samoa Joe, but Samoa Joe isn't in a car and he leaves, which I thought was a good segment. And then we had the first match on the show was Liv Morgan versus Rachel Frazier. It was okay, nothing to it really. Liv Morgan pretty much made her tap out to the head scissors for the win. And afterwards, she gets on the mic and says that Asuka thinks that she's wiped out the entire NXT Women's Division. Well, she's right here, and she's ready to fight. And she wants to, and she's coming after the NXT Championship, and she's coming after Asuka. So it looks like they're building up Liv Morgan as the next #1 contender. I'm really not a huge Liv Morgan fan. I just think that she's really bland, so I'm really not a huge fan of her, so this was just, Then we had Drew Gulak, who was a Cruiserweight Classic, who was a true Cruiserweight Classic competitor, versus Hideo Itami. And this was actually a pretty good matchup. I thought they both gelled really well. If they had had more time, they probably could have had a better matchup, but this was still fine. And Hideo Itami wins with the GTS, which now he's starting to use as his finisher now, which I'm really happy about. So I think that's good. Overall, good match. And then we had the Authors of Pain with Paul Ellering ringside versus Doug Sessa and his tag team partner, but they never said who it was, so I can't really tell you. And this was obviously I liked the match because it made the Authors of Pain look strong. And one funny spot was Doug's tag team partner was just about to deuce right out of there, and Akam just puts him right back in the ring and just takes him out, which I thought was funny. And they take him out with a double power bomb, and then they hit the clothesline into the Russian leg sweep onto Doug for the win. So obviously it was another way to make the Authors of Pain look strong, which I liked. And then Ty Dillinger got interviewed, and he talks about how even though he pretty much says even though he's had a few setbacks over the past few months and he lost to Orny Loken with an upset, he said that's what happens. People have setbacks, but he was able to rebound because the past couple of weeks he's been winning, and now he's proven that he's a perfect 10. And I get he's trying to be a heel by being cocky and everything, but he just screams a babyface to me, Ty Dillinger. He just screams babyface. And I really hope they go into the direction at some point and turn him babyface. And then we had the main event of the show. It was No Way Jose versus Bobby Roode. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good main event. No Way Jose dominates the first half of it. He takes him out with a dive. And then Bobby Roode hits a spine buster on him, dominates the match. Then No Way Jose makes a comeback. Goes for his knuckleball that he likes to hit out of the corner. But Roode ducks it and gets him into a neck breaker. And he hits the jumping DDT on No Way Jose for the win. And overall, it was a good, solid match and a good, solid main event. And overall, I thought this was actually a really good episode of NXT. I really enjoyed it. I liked the tag team match because it made the Authors of Pain look strong. I liked the main event. I thought the main event was good. Gulak and Itami was good. The women's match was okay. You're building up the new woman for the division, so that's good. And obviously, the highlight of the night with me was the build-up for the Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe for when they have their rematch for the NXT title. So overall, I thought this was a really good show. Okay, so now we have NXT for September 28th, 2016. And the commentators were obviously the same. Samoa Joe came out to cut a promo, and he talked about how what he did to Shinsuke Nakamura was brutal. And he says that he has a handwritten note stating all his injuries. He pretty much says that he's hurt and that he'll be out from 6 to 12 weeks. And Samoa Joe says that he's not waiting for an NXT rematch for that long. Well, he's for his NXT title rematch for that long. So he says that either William Regal can give him Nakamura for his rematch, or he can hand him the NXT championship. So then William Regal comes out and says that that letter there wasn't false, and he'll deal with how he got it later. And he said that Shinsuke Nakamura is no normal man. He's not that type of guy that'll call you and say if he's injured or not. So he says that he will deal with the problem that he caused in the first place. So then Samoa Joe comes up and pretty much threatens him and says that if you don't give me what I want, then what's on this list is going to be what's going to happen to all your other superstars. So I thought that was really good promo. I thought this was a really good segment. I loved it. One thing, though, I kind of wanted to say in the last episode is I kind of wish the Samoa Joe beatdown would have ended off last week's episode of NXT. Just kind of a thought. And then Cedric Alexander gets interviewed, and he talks about how because the whole storyline here was one of his matches in the Cruiserweight Classics really impressed the fans, and they got a signed Cedric chant. And Triple H had come out and really raised his hand and everything, so he got signed to NXT. And he says that he's been fighting on the indie scene all his life, and he's going to make the most out of his opportunities. And then Liv Morgan gets interviewed and pretty much says the same thing in a promo, that she didn't come here to rise from the bottom and be knocked right back there. And she said that she's going to take the fight to Asuka. Asuka comes up and says that you're not ready for this match, and says that you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And then the first match on the show was Oni Loken versus Austin Aries. And this was actually a really good matchup. Austin Aries had a back suplex right on the outside, like he just took him from inside the ring and dropped him on the outside, and Loken ended up landing tailbone first on the apron. So Aries pretty much dominated, and then Oni Loken made a comeback. He had a ton of hip attacks in the corner, and a bunch of uppercuts. And eventually Aries throws him out of the ring, and dives on him on the hits the chop, the flying axe handle on the outside, and then he hits a drop kick in the ring, and then Loken hits an uppercut from the top rope. Aries kicks out, and then Oni Loken goes for an uppercut in the corner. Aries hits a drop kick, and he teases that he's going for the brainbuster, but instead he just drops him on his knee, which I think busted him open, because after the match Aries had blood all over his chest, and it gets him in the last chancery, and Loken taps out, so Aries gets the victory. I really like that they're teasing the brainbuster, because I really want them to do that move. It's like, ugh, come on, why won't they do that move? But overall, really good match. And then Aries gets on the mic and says that the reason that he wasn't here last week is because he has better things to do on his time off. And he says that if he sees Hideo Itami, he would knock out that little baby. So that Hideo Itami comes out to have a fight, to fight him, but Aries escaped before he gets in the ring. So I thought this was pretty good stuff. I thought this was pretty good stuff here. And then it shows a video for Dana Matha. I don't really know a lot about him, but he's going to be debuting on not the next episode of NXT, but the episode after that. Then DYI. I don't know if that's the actual name of the tag team, but it's best known as Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa get interviewed, and they talk about being in the Cruiserweight Classics. And then the Revival come up and kind of talk shit to him, so they get into a fight on the outside, and they just beat the crap out of each other, and it has to be broken up. I thought this was really good. And then we got Aaliyah versus Billie Kay. Alright match. Aaliyah, I think, is still very green in the win, but I hopefully the thing about NXT is just supposed to get better, so I hope that's what happens. But Billie Kay beats her with the big boot. I really like Billie Kay, though. I think she's been doing great. And then we get another Sanity video package, and then Mandy gets interviewed again. Because lately she's been poking fun at Ember Moon on Twitter, and she says that Ember Moon doesn't look like a real woman. That a real woman, she looks like a crossover between someone from the Game of Thrones and Little Red Riding Hood. And she said that this is what a real woman looks like, and she's going to show Ember Moon when she gets in the ring with her, so obviously building up a future matchup between them. And then we had the main event. It was Cedric Alexander versus Adriana Cien Almas. I thought this was a great main event. It was really awesome. And the first half of the match, they were just they were really out-quicking each other, they were doing a lot of chain wrestling, trying to kick each other, but they kept missing. It was more defensive stuff. And then Adriana Cien Almas hits a drop kick outside while he's on the outside, and he hits the dive-in plancho on the outside onto Alexander, and then Cedric Alexander starts to make a comeback. He hits an enziguri right onto Almas, and then he hits a dive on the outside, and they just really started to go back and forth with each other. Cedric Alexander hit a springboard clothesline in the ring. Adriana Cien Almas hit a roll up into a power bomb, and Cedric Alexander hit a sick Enziguri, and eventually Adrianus Giannomas hits the moonsault but misses, and then he just ends up flipping on him anyways. And eventually Cedric Alexander hits the back suplex into the backbreaker for the win. And I thought it was a good idea to put him over because it was his first match in NXT. And obviously, I think everyone really liked him, so it was kind of throwing the NXT universe a bone. And afterwards, they shake hands and hug and show respect to each other. So I thought that was all very good. And overall, this was a really good episode of NXT. I like the promo segment with Samoa Joe building up the NXT title match for whenever that happens. Cedric Alexander match and interview was really good. And the debut of Cedric Alexander was awesome. Loki and Aries was good, and the build-up with Hideo Itami and Aries was good. The build-up for the NXT Tag Team titles was really good. And the build-up for the NXT Women's title match, because they announced that in the next episode of NXT, I don't know if it's a title match, but it's going to be Asuka versus Liv Morgan. So, and they did a good job building up the women this week and having the match itself. So overall, a really good episode of NXT. I'll grade it 8 out of 10. Okay, so now we're on to NXT for September 21st, 2016. We had the same people on commentary as always. And William Regal's in the Performance Center, and he announces that they are going to have the return of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics, which I like that they're putting that back because it's a great tribute to Dusty Rhodes. Since he had done a lot for NXT, and I just thought it was a great concept last year, so I like that. And yeah, it was just definitely emotional, because it's definitely emotional to see Dusty Rhodes and kind of think about him again, so. And then we had the first match on the show was Ty Dillinger versus Angelo Dawkins. I thought in a way this match fit, because you had Ty Dillinger, who's the perfect 10, and you have Angelo Dawkins, who likes to call himself, you know, greatness. So I thought that this match, it made sense for them to have a match. Kind of wish though they would take Angelo Dawkins more seriously, and they could have built up a feud with this, you know, since they have this gimmicks. But Ty Dillinger wins with the tiebreaker, and then afterwards, when he's celebrating, Bobby Roode comes out and says that the main reason he came to NXT, well, actually, he says that was impressive. Wasn't glorious, but impressive. But he says that the reason he came to NXT is to win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics. But he says that the problem is he hasn't made a lot of friends, and he needs a tag team partner to do so. So he asked Ty Dillinger if he wants to make himself, because he says he's not a perfect 10. You'll get there, but he says that he asked him to be his tag team partner, and he talked about how close him and Dusty Rhodes used to be. So this is your chance to win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics. So then Ty Dillinger shakes his hand. So. Well, we find out that it's going to be Ty Dillinger and Bobby Roode teaming up in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics. And then Hideo Itami got interviewed. Pretty much says the same thing that he's been saying, that Austin Aries isn't a real man. All that. And then we had the Ellie brothers, I think is how to say that. I don't know really sure. Versus the Revival. The match never happens. The Ellie brothers, who are twins, by the way, so you can't really tell. But Samoa Joe comes in and just beats the crap out of them, the Ellie brothers, and just hits senton after senton on them. And I like this because Samoa Joe lives up to his promise by saying he's going to take out the NXT roster, and this was a good start. And then it gets on the mic and says that William Regal failed to make his decision, so this is what happens. But he pretty much says, you know, either you give me Nakamura, Shinsuke Nakamura for the NXT title, or you hand me the championship. Then afterwards, when he goes to leave, he throws one of the Ellie brothers into the steel steps. Then it shows another Dan Mantha video packet. They announced that he's going to be debuting on the next episode of NXT. Then we had Mandy Ross versus Ember Moon. I thought it was an okay match. Ember Moon went for Hurricanrana, but Mandy dropped it with a face buster, which I thought looked sick. And then Ember Moon wins with the the springboard stunner, I believe. But I kind of don't remember in a way. But she won. And then DIY get interviewed and talk about how They have a lot of things on the list that they want to do, and they talk about how they want to win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic since that allowed them to debut, and it would mean a lot to them. And they said that they want to beat the Revival, and they said that they want to do the impossible and win the NXT Tag Team Championships. I thought this was a good interview segment. And then we get another Sanity video package. Then we have the Authors of Pain with Paul Ellering ringside versus Jesus, Yonette, and Jonathan Cruz. Obviously, this was a destruction. They just beat the shit out of him. They hit a double knee buster. I forget which one, but one of the Authors of Pain just takes... I don't really know the names, but one of the guys and just tosses him right out of the ring. And the Authors of Pain hit the clothesline Russian leg sweep on one of the guys for the win. And afterwards, Paul Ellering gets on the mic and says that the first chapter was the Arrival, then the next chapter is pretty much going to be Pain. And he says that that's all you need to know. So I like that. It still leaves that mysteriousness in them. And then William Regal gets interviewed, and he gets asked about the condition of Shinsuke Nakamura and what happened with Samoa Joe. And he says that he still has no words for him. And he goes to talk about the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics, and Blake and Murphy come up, and they start arguing with each other because they both want, they claim that they have this act together, but they start arguing with each other, so it doesn't really work out. So, you know, I still don't like what they're doing there. So I got something in my eye. Okay. And then William Regal just tells him to get out of his office. And then we have Liv Morgan versus Asuka. Asuka just wins and makes her tap out to like an abdominal stretch, just like that. I like that though because it makes Asuka look really dominant, as she was able to win in really fast in quick fashion. And then afterwards, she gets asked if there's anyone else for her to take out, and Asuka says that nobody is ready to take her. No one in NXT is ready to take her on. Then we had the main event. It was Lince Dorado versus Hideo Itami. I thought this was a really good main event. You know, it was really good. Lince Dorado hits a dive on the outside, and they just go back and forth, and Hideo Itami wins with the go to sleep. So I thought it was a really good match. And then afterwards, Austin Aries attacks Itami from behind, but Hideo Itami is able to fight him off, and you know, is able to stand tall. And yeah, so overall, I thought it was a really good episode of NXT. You set up the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics, which they announced the finals are going to take place at NXT TakeOver Toronto. So, and you set up, what else did you set up? And you had a really good match with Aries and, no, you had a really good match with Dorado and Itami. You had the women's matches I thought were pretty good, so overall a really good episode of NXT. By the way, I messed up. The episode that I just reviewed was September 28th, 2016. So I want to make sure I make that clear. But I'm also here to end off the video. I got one more video of these to do, and it's 3:14 in the morning, and it's Monday, and I still got to watch the NXT TakeOver Toronto itself and do the Aftershock Corner because we're reviewing it. So hopefully I can get all that. I want to try to get this up before I go to school, so I may have to stay up all night. So yeah, but make sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure to subscribe to everything else and check out the past episodes. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'll talk to you later.